Welcome to the Elite Real Estate Leaders Podcast, brought to you by Trailstone Insurance Group, bringing you interviews with the best real estate and mortgage professionals, empowering you to understand the current trends in the housing market so that you make the American dream your reality. Enjoy today's episode.
Welcome to the Elite Real Estate Leaders Podcast. Today we have with us Jina St James, who's the Chief Visionary and CEO with St James team, brokered by eXp Realty. Jina, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me. A little nervous.
Oh, we're just going to chat. It's always fun to learn from different people and their background and perspectives on the industry. And I absolutely love Chief Visionary. So I want to make sure that you're going to talk about that, because a real estate professional typically is not titled a Chief Visionary. So we want to make sure we get to that. But before we do, give us a little bit of your story and your background, and how did you get into the real estate industry?
Yeah, so pretty crazy. I was one of those weirdos that loved walking through model homes just because. And I truly loved architecture and just seeing all the different designs. And I'm like, God, I really love this. How can I make this a living? And so that's kind of where I found my way into becoming a real estate agent and really dived into new builds. And thanks to my husband not going crazy anymore and going on those trips with me through the models, he's very happy now that I do real estate and not just go through these houses for fun.
Yes. So now you've turned it into a fun profession. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So then let's define, what is your version of what does Chief Visionary mean? And what is that? How does that play out in how you are serving your clients?
Yeah, so I truly enjoy what that means, because not everybody understands that, but we're kind of the weird ones where we can see things that sometimes other people can't see. And so it helps us visually see aspects that can either help our clients through the process, or we're super aware of certain things that are happening that they themselves might not be aware of. So we're full of the creative side. One of the things I enjoy doing is just learning how can I make the process better and up the ante on the customer service, because let's be honest, that's been lacking in the industry for a long time.
100%. It sometimes I like to say that it doesn't take much to stand out. If you just return phone calls, emails, and treat people the way you'd like to be treated yourself, you'd end up looking like a rock star, which is pretty sad state of affairs, but pretty amazing, because it's like, I could do that.
Yeah,
Crazy
that's
concept.
easy.
Well, I am actually curious, Jina, what are you guys doing with AI? That seems to be the topic of discussion. So I'll bet that in your process somewhere you're incorporating AI.
Oh, 100%. It's one of those things, like either you join them or you get left behind.
Exactly.
So I had briefly heard about something called conversational AI, and I'm like, oh, what's that about? And learned really fast that it's a really new program and software that these AIs can actually have a full-on conversation just like you and I do. And you can incorporate it into your business. So one of the things that we're doing is we're actually creating a role play bot where we get to practice with the AI on how to give the best service to our clients instead of practicing on them during the transaction.
Wow. Can you elaborate on that? That is actually extremely interesting. What types of things are you saying?
So, for example, like the biggest thing that we're dealing with right now is a lot of people are concerned about the NAR settlement. And they, from my perspective, in the state of Colorado, we've already kind of been doing the right things. Now we're just adding a few more features that is better customer service to our clients, which we should have done from day one.
Sure.
And so some of those tough conversations, especially if you're not used to doing a buyer's consultation, you can literally sit down with the AI and say, I want you to be the agent and I'm going to be the buyer and I'm going to ask you questions and I want to hear how you address that. Or I could flip it and say, I'm going to be the agent and I want you to be the buyer and say these certain things or act this certain way, or I want you to completely wing it, and it will. And then it will score you at the end and it'll coach you and give you feedback.
Well,
Now, are
my
you
question is
training
how
that bot on your
yeah.
content? Or are you just having the bot go out there to the internet? Because I've heard it both ways,
Yeah.
where some of these bots can just go Google the same way as you. But if you load it up with your proprietary company content, now it's really drawing from that. Is that what you guys are doing?
Yeah, we're doing a little bit of both. So we're making sure that our knowledge base for our AIs is really robust. So we're already beta testing with some of the top agents in the area because we like to collaborate. And we're incorporating that in and we're putting all of it. So that AI probably would do much better than us if we didn't
Wow,
practice. But yeah, it's pretty amazing.
So are you
that's pretty cool.
scoring it at the end just as much as it scores you? Are you like you did 10 out of
Yeah,
10 this?
yeah, for sure. Like, one of the things, like it made the mistake of saying, I think it was something along commissions, and we prefer to say professional fee. And then I explained to it, I'm like, if you're acting as an agent, you need to say this. But if you are the buyer or the consumer, you're more than welcome to say this, because that's the problem is agents, they want to practice with other agents, but we know the lingo. The public does
Yep.
not. So we need to
Sure.
learn how to react when they use the wrong lingo. So we educate them in a
So
nice
cool.
way, of
That's
course.
and then you turn that training and practicing and role playing into actually presenting to your clients and prospects. What do you do differently on those presentations that other agents are not doing?
So, gosh, I'd say about 6 years ago, I read a book called from Joey Coleman, How to Never Lose a Customer Again. And that was
Great
like a
book.
game changer for me because I was like, I think I'm doing pretty good. But then I followed his systems and I literally, it was ridiculous on a whiteboard. I had all these post-it notes through the process. And I realized, oh my gosh, there is so many holes in this system. And so we literally created a whole new system from beginning to end. So everybody's talking about doing buyer consultations now. Well, we've been doing them. And there's a whole system that we do. So, they come in, and before they come in, we do a pre-appointment questionnaire. And we're like, hey, what's your favorite snacks and food? So when they come in, we have that there so they feel comfortable. And then when they're in, we actually have them fill out a questionnaire. So kind of like, when you go to a doctor's office, you fill out a questionnaire. So I can quickly scan that and see where their mindset is and get to the heart of the matter. So instead of wasting all this time about the basics, I'm getting deep down into what they're truly needing, educating them on the process, setting the right expectations. And then, of course, when we get through the process, we do cool things like when we're out showing, we have hangry bags for them because you all know they get angry.
That's smart.
And then we have what we call a client survival kit. So we send out a client survival kit in the mail that has a lot of cool stuff in it, including it's kind of like a Candyland game magnet that goes on the fridge, and it tells them what's next, because that's the biggest thing. This is where the fear starts coming up, is because they don't know what's next. They don't know the process like we do, but they have a little game that they can follow along. So they're aware of what's next. And a lot of other things, but that's just some of the stuff we do differently.
That's really smart. Actually, gamification right now is huge. Everyone loves to gamify everything. And what a smart way to do that in your business, because it is very hard to do it, on the sales side. So good on you. That's great.
Thank you.
That is awesome.
And I was listening to you in your intro talking about you love to walk into new builds. I so identify with that. There's nothing like walking into a new build. They're so beautiful. Do you actually do a lot of work with new builds now?
Yes, I do. I am actually a director of sales and marketing for JS Luxury Homes. So I get to really have fun and see some of the most beautiful homes because it's a custom builder. So that does help fulfill that craziness. But I also love checking out our local builders here and just working hand in hand with them and also training other agents how to work with them. There's a lot of fear with builders, and it's just misinformation. So I like to help them and go, hey, these are actually your partners. These are great people to work with. They all want the same goal and they help you even more through the process with your buyers.
So what's the fear about builders?
There's a lot of misconception that a builder will take away your clients and take away your
Uh,
commission. And, it's very understandable. You have to be the procuring cause for a buyer. So if just somebody walks in a new building, you're not with them, then you're not the procuring cause. You're not the reason that they went to go look at it. So, a lot of agents think, well, I talked to them and therefore they're my clients. And I'm like, well, do you have an exclusive agency? Oh, you don't? Well, then they're not your clients. Like
yeah,
that's on
I sent
you.
him an email once, so that
Yeah.
obviously means
I said hi. I gave him my
yeah.
business card. I'm like, yeah, that doesn't qualify. Sorry.
That's awesome. So so when you think about new build versus existing homes, what are you finding most buyers wanting? Or is there a preference for new build versus existing, where you can, even have a little bit of say so in the finish in the customization?
Absolutely. It's actually funny you bring that up. We joke around about this. We have a lot of buyers, like we'll go look at resale homes or existing homes. And they're like, oh, I could fix that. I could paint that. I can do this. You go into a new build. No, it has to be perfect. And you're like, wait, what?
That's hilarious.
The different standard
Right.
there.
Yeah, the expectations from a buyer standpoint is really different from a resale to a new build. There's a lot
Wow.
of pros and cons on both sides, and so it's really just navigating what the buyer's wants are, but more importantly, what their needs. So we always identify the needs first, and then as a bonus, we'll add in the wants.
That's a really interesting perspective. I've
Mhm.
heard something similar where it's like if you're taking someone through a house and you see, something negative like a crack here or there, you don't wait for them to point it out. You actually say, now, of course, we got this crack here and it's no big deal but when you point it out, it's like, oh, that's no problem. But if the prospective buyer saw it, now it's a federal case. So that's really curious that you use that example. That's pretty funny.
Thanks. I try to throw humor in all the time.
Well, that's
Now,
human nature, though.
Yeah.
It really is. It's a reflection of human nature. Go ahead, Tier.
yeah, I was gonna say, the psychology piece is huge. I'm very into the psychology of all businesses, but I'm kind of wondering how you feel about, when you're taking someone to see a new build versus, are you really recommending the new? I know you said you identify their needs first, but would you really recommend a new build in today's day and age and how they're built and what the materials they're built with versus something that's already built just because of well, I always look at the ROI, right? Like what is the ROI on any home? What's your
Mhm.
perspective there?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think there's a lot of misconception between existing homes and new builds, right? And it just depends on how old the existing home is. If you look at the factor of new builds where there's a lot of new codes that have been put in place that are actually energy efficient, that helps your clients save money in the long run.
Sure.
Because again, this isn't a short-term concept. And I think that's the mistake, right? A lot of
Hmm.
people go into this process as if they're buying a car or a new couch. No, most of the loans are 30 years.
Yep.
30 years you're in a home. So you need to look at the long-term aspect of it. So interest rates are definitely a factor in that. And I think right now with this day and age and what's going on, builders have a little bit more I guess the word I would say is that they have just they're able to give a little bit more than a typical seller. They can help buy down the interest rates to help someone make the home a little bit more affordable compared to an existing home where a seller might not have that extra financing to help
I see.
a buyer buy down an interest rate. And then there's warranties involved in that. Appliances, they're usually newer on a new build, right? So you have
Yep.
longer warranties on that. And then the foundation, the structure, and all those things. So there's pros and cons to both for sure. And it just depends on the buyer. What is more important to them? Where does the value lie within them? We can discuss it all day long, but at the end of the day, they're the ones that are paying the mortgage. So it
Yep.
has to make sense to them.
Right.
So Gina,
but
is
I love
a
that
new
perspective though. Go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
do you think that a new build is going to appreciate faster?
I think we've already seen that. Just with the new technology just in itself that's
Yeah.
being incorporated into new builds, where some of the existing homes, it's harder to put that new technology in. I
Mhm.
definitely, it just, again, there's so many factors, like the common joke, location. I can have an
Mhm.
amazing new build, but if it's not in the best location, it's not going to appreciate.
Sure.
So
Sure.
it just depends.
And then what about another factor? You mentioned like a 30-year mortgage. That's a, a long time. Most people aren't staying in the actual house that long. So statistically, they might move in whatever time frame. Let's call it 5 to 7 years, whatever. But are people going to stay in a new build longer than an existing home? Or again, is that going to be case by case?
I really believe it's case by case. I think
Mm-hmm.
Colorado Springs in general is just an interesting city in itself because of how much military we have. So we
Mhm.
definitely have a lot different movement compared to some other cities throughout the state, right? Um, so again, yeah, it's definitely case by case. I there's just there is so many good pros and cons to both sides of it. That's where us as agents get to come in and really figure out what matters to that person that is going to have to pay that.
Makes sense. Yeah. I love that. Thank you.
Sure.
So are you working a good percentage split between buyers and sellers, or do you have a preference or a kind of like a wheelhouse? Where's your preference?
I'm actually really doing both. I enjoy both
Mhm.
processes. Um, Both of them have some really cool different aspects to the transaction, if you will. But yeah, we do both sides, and we do some fun stuff on the seller side too. So we uh we upped our game on the customer service side for sure.
Well, what does that look like? I want to hear something fun.
Well, I can tell
We
you
all do.
something that I can tell you something that definitely, whenever I mention it to a group of agents, they're like, "You do what?" Um, that's me. I like to disrupt things, apparently.
Mhm.
But you hear how all the time agents, they go to a seller's house and they discuss the pricing of how they should sell their house and the marketing. And I'm like, why are you guys doing that? To me, that's not professional because you're walking into their home. It's not a house, it's a home to them. And they're surrounded by all the emotional memories. They're not
Mhm.
thinking logical. They're not thinking about, hey, we need to get out of this house because of whatever reason, or we want to move up, or what have you. We bring them into our office and we have them sit down for a consultation within the office without us even looking at the house. We just pull the data first and show them what the data says before we go look at their home and all the added features that they may or may not have done.
Yeah, because you
That's
really
pretty
can't put a
smart.
price on those memories, right? As far as,
No, that's
personally,
priceless.
when you're thinking about your house. Yeah, I love that. You go to neutral ground to discuss the price. That is really smart.
Yeah.
Well, and also when you get there, they could point out some things they've done that it's like, oh, hey, we didn't realize you had new marble, blah blah blah. Then that can polish up the price a little bit. But I think that's a
Exactly.
really neat idea because a lot of that first appointment anyway is getting to know them, their needs, and kind of like that intake kind of stuff. So that's a
Mhm.
really great approach.
Yeah. And I've had some agents go, well, what if you can't get them to come? well, then they're not the clients for us. This is the procedure. This is the way that we do things. It's just like when you go into a doctor's office, you don't get to tell the doctor what they're going to do.
Yeah.
You just kind of follow
Well,
suit.
if they won't follow that first request, then what other request to follow will they not,
Exactly.
engage with? That's a really good point.
And the other cool thing that we do, so a fun tidbit, I think we make the mistake is that we always think that the buyer's agent is going to come in and sell our listing for us. But their job is a lot different. They have a different priority than us. So we actually put plaques all up throughout the house that highlights features of the home. So then it helps the buyer's agent and the buyer see different features that they may or may not have been aware of. And it also gives them permission to actually open doors and look through stuff. Cause you get a little weird when you're going through someone else's house. You don't know if you want to open the closet door. Who knows what's in there, right? So gives them that.
That's pretty cool.
Taking control of your
That's
listing.
really cool.
I love that. Yep.
And helping the story be told, not just hoping that the buyer's agent tells it. I really like that aspect that you put those plaques up. I can envision even some QR codes that you can scan and get more information about, whatever the case is. So that's pretty cool, Jina. So let's wrap up with this. If someone is listening to this, wanting to learn more about what you do and reach out and connect with you, what's the best way that they can do that?
Definitely through my website, 100%. I am on Facebook as well, and you can always text me through there. And I'm going to be starting teaching classes on the Insight system, which is just some of the things that I told you guys about today.
That is awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a real pleasure talking with you.
Thank you guys so much for having me. It was so much fun.
Absolutely.
Thank you for listening to the Elite Real Estate Leaders Podcast, brought to you by Trailstone Insurance Group. To learn more about the topics mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.eliterealestateleaders.com.